What if Padme didn't fall out of the transport in Attack of the Clones? In the timeline that we know and love, Padme ends up falling out of the Republic gunship that's chasing Dooku's speeder on Geonosis. On one of our older YouTube videos, though, Daniel Harvett inquired what if instead Padme hadn't fallen into the sandy desert dunes. That's the story that we'll be exploring today, so let's dive right into things. When the gunships arrive at Dooku's hangar bay, Anakin is more at ease. While he's still an emotional teenager, he's more inclined to listen to his master, with whom he did not just have a massive argument with in this timeline. When the Jedi arrive at the hangar, Padme calls more clones to come back her up outside the doors, setting up a perimeter. The gunship that drops off the Jedi and the Senator also stays at the hangar, just in case Dooku managed to escape the grasp of Anakin and Obi-Wan. As the clones continue to arrive, Obi-Wan and Anakin confront Dooku. Because Anakin is more at ease in this situation, he is more inclined to listen to his master. While Anakin is still headstrong and frustratingly obstinate in this situation, he allows his cooler head to prevail, and takes on Dooku alongside Obi-Wan. The two are able to hold their ground in a duel with the Sith Master. Because of Dooku's status as one of the greatest lightsaber combatants in the galaxy, he certainly holds his own against the pair of Jedi. He even throws in some classy, well-thought-out taunts at them throughout their duel. However, the pair of them are much more of a challenge for the elderly Sith than in Attack of the Clones, where each of them are forced to battle Dooku individually. After the clones arrive at the perimeter, Padme orders them to help the two Jedi in the hangar. They enter with their weapons drawn, demanding that Dooku surrender. He merely laughs, causing pieces of debris to fly in their direction with the Force, which distracts him momentarily. As this is happening, Yoda arrives, and he pushes the debris back towards Dooku. For a moment, the Sith is distracted, thrown off by the presence of his old master. Anakin and Obi-Wan take advantage of this opportunity, running towards Dooku in an attempt to disarm him. Dooku senses his attack, and he hurls a barrage of Force lightning at the pair of Jedi. They have to deflect this blast, but Yoda does not. He quickly jumps at Dooku and kicks the curved hilt from his hand with a wild backflip move, once again catching Dooku off guard. The three Jedi take this opportunity to surround Dooku, placing their lightsabers to his throat and demanding that he surrender. The clones also close in, led by Padme, aiming their weapons at Dooku's head. Knowing that he's defeated, and because he's tired from his use of the dark side in his old age, Dooku surrenders, giving himself up to the Republic forces. Following this, Dooku is taken hostage by the clones and the Jedi. They strap some restraints on his wrists and end up bringing him to Coruscant aboard one of the Republic cruisers that the clones had brought to Geonosis. Yoda, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Padme all end up questioning him, wondering if he knows about these organized separatist movements. Dooku tells Obi-Wan that he should have believed him earlier, when their roles had been reversed following Obi-Wan's capture at the droid factories. He informs the others present that there is a malevolent force guiding the Senate, the dark hand of Lord Sidious, whose immense dark side power has been clouding the view of the Council for decades now. Anakin tells Dooku to stop playing games and to tell them the truth. Dooku merely smirks, saying that even if he did tell them the truth, they wouldn't believe him. Seeing that this is a frivolous endeavor for the moment, the Jedi end up leaving Dooku's cell, telling the clones to maintain close watch over him. Following this interaction, the Jedi brief Chancellor Palpatine on the situation. He indicates that he is incredibly pleased with the capture of Dooku, and that surely this will deal a crippling blow to the separatist movement. Without their political figurehead, their movement would surely soon collapse. However, once Palpatine ends the call with the Jedi, he feels great concern. The Chancellor is unsure how much Dooku will reveal to the Jedi about what's really going on, so he begins to become worried for the safety of his plan. However, after a moment of contemplation, an idea occurs to him. He asks Mas Amidala to issue Order 66 early, which would weaken the Jedi Order while simultaneously allowing for Palpatine to consolidate further power and begin the implementation of the ultimate end goal for his military, the Stormtrooper program. Mas Amidala ends up recording a message that goes out to every single clone in the newly formed Grand Army of the Republic to execute Order 66. Immediately, they turn on the generals that they had just been fighting for on Geonosis. Many of the ones who were involved in the assault perish, sadly, taken aback by the sudden change of loyalty of their soldiers. Palpatine smiles. Soon, despite the capture of Dooku, his plan would come to fruition. Aboard the Venator, the clones begin to fire at Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Anakin. Padme tries to reason with them, but they're beyond the point of no return. The clones truly believe that the Jedi have betrayed the Republic. The trio of Jedi are able to escape, blasting bolts back with their lightsabers and using force speed to navigate the hallways towards the hangar bay. Anakin hops in the cockpit of one of the transport ships and navigates it to hyperspace, narrowly dodging blasts from pursuing ARC fighters as he does so. Padme stays on the ship, as she can't catch up with them, but the clones assure her that she's safe with them. Even many of the non-clone Republic officers are taken aback by this development, inquiring as to what is going on. The clones only tell them that they've received an order that all the Jedi are traitors to the Republic, and that they need to be eliminated. The officers ask where they received this order, and they claim that it was from Mas Amidala himself. Many of the officers are incredibly hesitant about this, but they have no way to disprove the claims, and Mas Amidala could be found in the video footage if they did look for it. So they go along with it. On the shuttle that the Jedi stole, Senator Bail Organa contacts Master Yoda on a secure channel. He first expresses that he's pleased to see him and his Jedi comrades are doing well, and he then informs them of the situation on Coruscant. He lets them know that Chancellor Palpatine had made a speech to the Republic Senate about the situation, letting them know that somehow, despite losing Dooku and being beaten on Geonosis, the Separatists had managed to gain access to Republic military codes. Following that, their technological specialists had created a holographic deepfake of Mas Amidala, and then they had beamed it over to the clones with orders to kill Jedi commanders. Palpatine argued that this proved the clones were not fit for duty, and they needed to be phased out with a new form of military that would not be so easily manipulated. He also states that there had clearly been separatist sympathizers within the Senate and the Republic military who had been providing their enemies with information, but they would use his emergency powers to unearth these traitors. He also reveals his big plan to begin recruitment for a new Republic standing military comprised of citizens from across the galaxy who were willing to join. Bail says that Palpatine's fiery remarks were met with thunderous applause, despite the massive cost of just purchasing clones and now rendering them obsolete. He was a charismatic guy. The Jedi are suspicious of this, telling Bail about what Dooku had said regarding how Darth Sidious had a significant influence over the Senate. Was it possible that the ancient Sith Lord was responsible for this attack on the Jedi? Shortly after calling Bail, the Jedi receive a transmission from Palpatine himself via Yoda's, again, personal secure comlink. He remarks that this entire situation is incredibly tragic, but that he would soon rectify the situation. His government had already, apparently, uncovered some secrets about certain senators that incriminated them for collusion with the Separatists. The three Jedi thank Palpatine for his condolences, and they say that they hope that he can deal with these threats to the Republic unity quite swiftly. The Chancellor remarks that he requests their presence on Coruscant at a public memorial that he was going to hold for all of the Jedi who had passed away on Geonosis. After hanging up the call, once again, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Yoda begin to suspect something amiss. What that is, however, they can't place their finger on. Shortly after the events of the preemptive Order 66, the Venator that Padme is aboard arrives on Coruscant. As soon as she sets foot on the surface, she stands face to face with Admiral Tarkin, who's accompanied by a sizable contingent of soldiers donning the Coruscant Guard armor. Padme notes that the troopers vary in size, indicating that the implementation of Palpatine's plan had already begun in the Corps, possibly with people with previous combat experience signing up quickly and not requiring nearly as much training. She had witnessed his speech on the HoloNet while on transport from Geonosis, and she had been incredibly skeptical of what he had said, especially given her history of pacifism within the Senate. She greets Tarkin cordially. However, the guards do not share his sentiments. They raise their weapons at Padme, and Tarkin remarks that she's under arrest for treason against the Republic by order of the Office of the Supreme Chancellor. Padme is enraged, and she yells back at Tarkin that she's completely innocent. This is a witch hunt by Palpatine, she cries, but she willingly goes with the Admiral, not wanting to make too much of a fuss. When she arrives in prison and is processed, Padme discovers that she's not the only one who's been subject to Palpatine's purge of so-called corruption and separatists among his ranks. Other anti-war senators are also present, such as Mon Mothma, Senator Chuchi, and even Senator Bail Organa himself. Dooku is also thrown in the same prison as him. Dooku ends up being cellmates with Bail, and he remarks that this is exactly how he envisioned the descent of the Republic into authoritarianism. This was only the beginning, Dooku chuckles, as Bail pushes his comments aside. The Republic was losing hope, It seemed that Palpatine had managed to get the entire galaxy on his side, and the situation seemed dire. However, there were still some remaining Jedi. Surely they could be a beacon of light in Palpatine's ever-constricting galaxy. Upon the arrival of Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda on Coruscant, they are greeted by Palpatine himself, who once again apologizes for the tragedy that had occurred within the clone ranks. Palpatine assured them that as he spoke, the transition was beginning towards a standing army comprised solely of willing citizens willing to fight the remaining separatist menace. Palpatine says that the Republic's vigil for the fallen and wounded Jedi would transpire later in the week, and that they were all invited to be guests of honor for their role on the Battle of Geonosis. Anakin asks if Padme was okay, to which Palpatine responds that he regrets to inform that she, along with many other senators, have been apprehended and were awaiting trial for conspiracy with the Separatists that had led to the horrible execution of many unsuspecting Jedi generals. Anakin and the other Jedi are absolutely floored by this revelation, telling the Chancellor that he must have been mistaken. Palpatine shakes his head gravely, stating that the intelligence that the Republic had received was absolutely correct. This raises the Jedi suspicions of Palpatine even further. Palpatine then asks if Yoda would be willing to give a speech in honor of the fallen Jedi, which Yoda agrees to. After this interaction, the Jedi decide that it would be prudent to discuss with Dooku current events and what is going on so that they could learn more about the situation and determine a further course of action. The next day, Yoda pays a visit to the prison that the Republic is holding Dooku in. He is allowed to see him due to his esteemed status within what remained of the Jedi Order, but only under the supervision of more of the newly minted Republic soldiers from member worlds. Little do they know that underneath Yoda's cloak, he has managed to sneak in a small recording device, which he had hidden with the Force when they had scanned his person for electronic devices before entering. Dooku chuckles when he sees his old master, wondering if he was finally willing to accept the truth. Yoda requests that the Sith Lord tell him everything that he knew about the person that he had referred to as Darth Sidious. Dooku gladly obliges, saying how he had tried to tell Obi-Wan, but that he hadn't believed him. Dooku rants about how the Jedi were so lost in their dogma and the politics of the Republic that they couldn't even see the evil that was right in front of them. The one that had thrown democratically elected senators in prison and who had caused the deaths of many in the Jedi Order. It is in this moment that Dooku reveals that Palpatine is Darth Sidious, and that he had been manipulating galactic affairs for years, just so that he could consolidate more power. Dooku says that now that he's in jail, he doesn't have much to lose by revealing any of this. He was killed by Palpatine, then so what? His message of separatism and political idealism had already spread across the galaxy. Sidious had promised to rid the Republic of corruption. Instead, he had become the very thing that he swore to destroy. Yoda asks Dooku how he can trust him, to which Dooku replies that the proof is right there in front of him. This war, the slaughter of the Jedi, the corruption in the Senate, all of it pointed directly to Palpatine. The Jedi would have to be fools not to see it. Yoda thanks his former Padawan for his time, and he says that he hopes Dooku can find the light again during his time in prison. When Yoda leaves, he finds Anakin becoming frustrated with one of the guards at the entrance to the prison. The guard won't let Anakin in to see Padme, which he starts pushing the young Jedi over the edge. Luckily, before any sort of altercation can break out, Yoda steps in, calming the tensions. Anakin shoots the guard a glare before uttering an insincere apology and leaving with Yoda, who inquires as to the cause of Anakin's outburst. Anakin tells Yoda that he's frustrated with the lack of fairness in regards to the imprisonment of the senators, and Yoda agrees. However, he tells Anakin to have patience. He now had proof that would be damning for the Chancellor, and he would bring it forward soon. Notably, Anakin leaves out that he still is madly in love with Senator Amidala. The pair arrive at the Jedi Temple, and Yoda calls for a meeting of all of the Jedi who are still alive and on Coruscant. There are many more that survive this early execution of Order 66, but they are still significantly diminished in numbers. Yoda says that he has a plan, and that during Palpatine's memorial service for the fallen Jedi, he would play the accusations of Count Dooku for the entire galaxy to hear. From there, the citizens could levy their judgments. The Jedi present agree to this, and they believe that it is the right course of action. By the time that the vigil rolls around later in the week, all of them are prepared to shake the political establishment in the galaxy. However, nothing ever goes exactly according to plan. Hey folks, if you're enjoying this story, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications as we update this channel weekly with new What If content. Now, back to the story. On the eve of the nighttime ceremony for the Jedi, which is to be held in front of the Jedi Temple, the sun sets over the streets of Coruscant. Many citizens have come out to mourn the loss of all the Jedi who had been tragically lost in battle, and almost all of the Jedi who were present on the planet have as well. It was clear that the event had been well advertised, and that the galaxy mourned with their Jedi counterparts. The event is littered with New Republic soldiers, mixed in with some of the old clones who had yet to be retired. When the Chancellor arrives, the entire crowd goes silent, and the ceremony begins. Palpatine begins by expressing how deeply distressed he is with what happened on Geonosis and across the galaxy, to where the clones were being deployed. He says that many of the Jedi who were killed had been near and dear to his heart, and that he believes the galaxy where the Jedi were meant to be the beacons of hope for all of those in need. He also reveals the unveiling of a massive statue that the Senate would be placing in front of the Jedi Temple to commemorate the lives of those who had passed away in the Clone Massacre. Many of the Jedi glance at one another uncomfortably, now knowing that this man had laced his words with countless lies. Mas Amidala, Sly Moore, Admiral Tarkin, and a contingent of the Coruscant Guard stand behind their Chancellor, who sports dark, mournful robes for the event. Many within the crowd begin to tear up at his remarks. The Jedi, however, remain stoic. They know that soon the people of the galaxy will know the truth. Perhaps then they would understand how grave the situation was, and they would end up standing up in democratic opposition to Palpatine's overreach. After Palpatine's speech concludes, he calls Yoda up to give a tribute to the fallen. Yoda begins by saying in his funky backwards speak that while he is saddened by the passing of his Jedi comrades, he knows that they have passed on into the living Force, and that they will continue to guide him and the Order through this difficult time. He then begins to tell the people that the Force has guided him towards a very specific message to deliver today in their memory, one that he senses that these passed away Jedi would want him to tell the galaxy. He then pulls out the small recording device and he plays his conversation with Dooku for the entire crowd to hear. Clearly, Palpatine was not expecting this turn of events. While he'd adapted to every situation that had come before, this one clearly threw him off. He glanced back and forth with his political advisors that stood on the stage with him, wondering what would happen next. As the recording concluded, Yoda requested that the people of the Republic draw their own conclusions, but he pleaded that they side with the Jedi in this situation. As Yoda hobbles back to his seat, hushed whispers engulf the crowd. Could this really be the truth? Could their fearless war leader have been lying the entire time? After this turn of events, Palpatine rises to speak again. He's quick on his feet, remarking that Yoda's speech had been tasteless and disrespectful. In fact, he even states that this recording implicates Yoda, along with the other Jedi, in the Separatist plot. What was once a well-intentioned memorial had been twisted into a display of political bluntness that indicated the Jedi's true loyalty to the Separatists. Palpatine states that he wouldn't even begin to fathom why the Jedi would turn against the Republic like this, especially after the massive outpouring of support that their citizens had given to them. Perhaps Dooku had promised his old friends on the Jedi Council more power within his government if they joined. Instead, Palpatine hits. At this, Anakin finally snaps. His pent-up rage about the death of his friends in the Order, along with the political detention of Padme, finally bubbles over. He calls Palpatine a liar before flipping onto the stage in an impressive acrobatic display and igniting his lightsaber at the Chancellor's throat. Anakin yells to the crowd that they can't believe this deceiver, and he argues that he had placed good senators in jail by using a separatist scare to stir up fear. Now, after revealing the truth, Palpatine was going to do the same to the Jedi, who had faithfully served the people of the Republic for centuries. Palpatine covers the mic, telling Anakin that he can sense the rage that the young Jedi has towards him, and Palpatine encourages Anakin to act on it. Anakin then tells the crowd what Palpatine had just uttered to him, trying to sell the story that this man was a deeply disturbed Sith Lord. It's at this time that some of the soldiers that were standing in Palpatine's contingent begin to stun blast Anakin, which takes him off guard. He falls to the ground and they arrest him, throwing him into custody with the other so-called treasonous senators. Palpatine once again appeals to his people, and it seems that some of them agree with him. However, there are also those who are in the beginning stages of putting the pieces together in their heads. At this point, they don't want to step in and save the Jedi from Palpatine's grasp, but they begin to shift uncomfortably away from the stage. Others are completely on board with Palpatine's story, especially after Anakin's rash act of attacking the Chancellor. They begin to push and shove the Jedi, throwing objects at them and shouting obscenities. Palpatine's new soldiers begin to surround the Jedi at the memorial, and they try and capture them. This was another devastating moment for the Jedi. A crowd that mere moments ago had been completely on their side now stood swearing at them, or not wanting to get involved. As Palpatine's forces surround the Jedi, many of them pull out their lightsabers in order to defend themselves. However, Yoda uses his mastery of the Force to push them away, and he tells the Jedi to run. Some of them manage to escape. However, many of them fall prey to Palpatine's foot soldiers. Some of them are captured. Many of them die. Once again, Palpatine had twisted the story, perverting it to make it look like the Jedi were traitors against the Republic. Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Mace Windu end up escaping this massacre, and they regroup in the underground of Coruscant after communicating over a secure hologram channel. After this purge of many of the remaining Jedi, Palpatine continues his war on their religion. He demands that if people find remaining Jedi, that they report them immediately to the Republic military. Palpatine also maintains that his new military program is crucial in the combat against the Separatists, who they are still fighting despite Dooku's capture. The Separatist Parliament still functions well, and they've assured their corporate sponsors that their resolve and movement is still strong. The Separatist Congress leader, Senator Beck Lois, continues to push for new military action under the direction of Admiral Trench, especially due to the Republic's early transition away from the clone troopers. He also invites all surviving Jedi to take refuge within the Separatist territory away from the wrath of Palpatine, in hopes that they will eventually join their cause. Many of the old, disgruntled clones also end up joining the fight against Palpatine's more authoritarian Republic, feeling that they were discarded like trash by his government and given absolutely no benefits. Some of them join the Separatists, but many of them end up forming their own rebellion and using guerrilla warfare techniques to disrupt the Republic military. Some Jedi also join the fight, but most of them remain low profile, or they flee to Separatist space. Mace, Yoda, and Obi-Wan decide that for a certain amount of time they will lay low. However, in their travels across the galaxy, they attempt to find sympathizers with the Jedi Order who understand their plight. They find many, but supporters of the Jedi cause are worried that they will be deemed separatists and persecuted by the law if they publicly support the surviving Jedi. While the trio receives plenty of support in private, it doesn't seem that anyone in the galaxy is brave enough to outwardly express that solidarity. They hop around from planet to planet, still trying to drum up some ire from citizens who aren't loyal to Palpatine. In prison, Anakin feels angry. He ends up in a cell all to his own, but he sees the political prisoners at mealtime, along with Dooku. Anakin and Padme begin to reconnect, and Anakin remarks that he'll make Palpatine pay for what he's done to both the Jedi Order and the Republic that he'd sworn to protect. Palpatine frequently visits Anakin in jail, goading him on, trying to stir up his negative emotions. He says that Anakin, if he pledges to join him, that he and Padme will be released from jail. Anakin spits at this offer, swearing that he'll never join Palpatine. Padme tells him in private that she agrees, and that despite their time in jail, at least they were still rebelling against the tyrant that had thrown them here in their own way of sorts, along with sticking by their moral codes. This doesn't stop Palpatine from trying. Furthermore, Dooku's influence begins to rub off on Anakin as well. Dooku tells Anakin that he had always known that something would happen, and that it was only a matter of time until the Republic evolved into full authoritarianism. In fact, he even brags about how initially he'd been part of this plan with Palpatine, and at that one time they were going to rule the galaxy together. Obviously, that hadn't worked out for him. Now, how do all these changes impact the end of our story? Let's wrap this up and see. At the end of this fiasco, Palpatine is able to consolidate further political power. His military has proven quite effective in battles with the Separatists, and the program is far less expensive than the clones were to manufacture with the Kaminoans. While Kamino was frustrated that they've lost the government contract, they know that they have other clients out there who will continue to buy. The Separatists continue to be a problem for the Republic, which allows Palpatine to continue his witch hunt for so-called Separatists within his government, most of whom are politicians that oppose his policy. Now, the Senate is almost entirely composed of representatives who outwardly support Palpatine's military agenda. However, public discontent with the war begins to grow, and the population of the Republic begins to become fatigued by it. People who support the Jedi begin to start getting brave, conducting demonstrations on their home planets that protest Palpatine's increased totalitarianism. They're quickly labeled as separatists and arrested, but the remaining Jedi maintain hope, as do the senators in prison. While all hope seems to be lost, people in the galaxy are starting to fight back. There's a light at the end of the tunnel for the downtrodden citizens of the Republic. Hey there, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed today's What If scenario. If you did, please consider checking out this other video. What if Obi-Wan and Anakin fought alongside Ahsoka at the Siege of Mandalore? Cheers, folks, and have a great day. Oh, and of course, be sure to get your daily dose of Bantha Stew. I hear that it's quite healthy.